In this video, I'm going to show you how I created this floor-to-ceiling wall mural from scratch using a combo of acrylic paint, latex paint, and just a little touch of that creative magic. Let's get into the video. Yeah. Hello my gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful queen bees. It is your girl Amanda, the buzzed artist. Welcome back to my channel. Now this video has been in the works for quite a while, mainly because we were in the middle of moving into our new house and I lost like a third of the footage. So I was trying to figure out whether I should just scrap this video or just kind of show you the process of what art is and how it can be completely imperfect. So in this video, I want to show you guys how I went about making a giant floor-to-ceiling wall mural for my daughter Robin's bedroom. So if ever you're thinking about doing a wall mural of your own and you're not sure how to get started, we're gonna walk through the process here together. Come along with me on this magical journey to see how I arranged, planned out, and put together a huge wall mural. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with my channel, first of all, hi. We do acrylic paintings on tiny standard canvases, but I have never, and I mean never, painted a mural ever. For somebody that has been painting now for quite a number of years, it still is kind of intimidating. Big, wide, white canvases and open spaces and unpainted areas can be a little scary. So the first step was to design and plan it out. When it's a much bigger space that you have to deal with, you want to take extra steps and precautions to make sure that whatever you have for that space is properly planned out. Because if it doesn't come out quite the way you want and you don't have time to fix it, it's just gonna be this big monster eyesore looking straight back at you, judging you for the rest of your days while you look at it. You can't stash it away in your closet. So unless you cray and you want to go at this wild style, I suggest you do some planning. And the first and probably one of the only places that I go for planning is Pinterest. Pinterest is just a treasure trove of stuff. Now, when I went about picking colors and design for this room, I had two questions in mind. One, who the room is for, and or what general purpose of that room is. Second tip, which is pick your background first and then think about your foreground, aka your design, second. Now I wanted to make this mural in my infant daughter's bedroom. I wanted her to feel like she can relax and go to sleep in her room, but at the same time I wanted there to be a little bit of playfulness so she can go ahead and play in her room when it's awake time, which happens a lot more often than I like. And if you're ever familiar with color psychology, certain colors will emit certain moods and emotions. Because I wanted something that was calming, promoted good sleep, and also playfulness, I opted for some grays and blues. You can do a simple Google search on color psychology charts just to get an idea of the different colors and what they do mentally and emotionally for you. Also a hot tip, if you're not quite sure what background color is going to look good for your particular space, Benjamin Moore has a really cool app that you can download onto your phone, take a picture of the space, upload it to the app, and play around with different color swatches within the Benjamin Moore collections. Even if you don't go with this particular brand, you have an idea of what colors work really well with the space. So hope you enjoyed that tip. I have the calm and sleepiness factor of the room with the background, but I now want to incorporate the playfulness factor. And I wanted to do that with colors. So when I was doing my Pinterest searching, I was looking for designs that looked well on a neutral, like gray-blue wall and had lots of color to it. And I stumbled on this really cool mountain design. Just looking at it made me feel so inspired. That was a signal that I had to go with this particular design and kind of work around it. So now that I've chosen my background color and my design colors as well as my overall design, I was ready to move on to step 2, gathering all of my painting supplies. I'm going to need a ruler, some cardboard, a box cutter, pencil and eraser, and a level. You also need some frog tape, some plastic disposable cups, and some stirring sticks. You can get like one of those kabob sticks or even popsicle sticks will do just fine. Almost forgot to mention this, but you're also going to need a drop cloth so it can catch all of that paint magic that you put on that wall. So let's talk about the paint that you use for a mural. Because we're doing a mural that's indoors, we're going to be using interior paint. Now there's always a question, what kind of paint can I use? You can use practically any paint. It just depends on what the paint can be used for. You can use oil paint, you can use latex paint, you can use enamel paint, you can use acrylic paint. You just have to make sure that you read the back of the paint can just to ensure that it can go onto drywall, which is the type of wall that I am using. But just be sure to read the paint can first. And because I'm a huge Benjamin Moore fan, I opted for their Regal Select latex paint. paint. Another really good tip, if you're selecting paint finishes from latex paint, opt for either a matte or a satin or an eggshell finish. Avoid glossy paint when and if you can. Glossy paint will show all the imperfections on your wall because it will bounce the light and your eye will pick up on that. You're gonna wanna go for finishes that are much more flat. For the background color, I went with the Benjamin Moore Regal Select Sweet Innocence, which is that more bluish gray color. It always felt really odd ordering that, by the way. It's like,
I'll have a gallon of Sweet Innocence, please.
stupid. And then for the mountain colors, I had a leftover gallon of this particular color, which is just like an off-white, snowfall white, to be more specific. And I use my Arteza outdoor acrylic paints to add to that base color to create the various colors of the mountain. Really like using latex paint because it has really low VOC emissions and because it also dries much, much quicker than, say, using oil. And because I chose a latex paint, it's actually okay for me to combine that with acrylic paint. But if you happen to go with oil paint, I would not combine acrylic paint with that. They do not mix very well together. And then there's the brushes. After having kind of done a little experiment, I had come to a few conclusions. One, I had used a microfiber mini roller and it just wasn't my style. I really wasn't into it as much as, say, an actual brush, but that's up to you and up to your discretion. If you don't like the feel of something, switch on to something else. So I switched over to a 2.5-inch angled tipped paintbrush, and not to sound ironic, it is the Corona brand paintbrushes. When I went to the paint store to buy this brush, I looked at the sales associate and was like,
really?
This brush slaps. I love this brush. Create extremely smooth paint marks on the wall, blurs away individual brush strokes so that in the end you get a uniform, non-splotchy coat of paint. And even better, you can do edges like so well. Sometimes you don't even need to tape because that's how precise the edge work is on these brushes. Maybe just consider investing in a really good brush, that one brush that you take care of that will do all of the work for you for many projects to come. So think about that. So once I've gathered all those paint supplies, it's now time to move on to step 3, which is prepping the wall. This is the most unsexy, boring part of this whole mural process.
And I know what you're thinking, oh Amanda, I don't need to prep my wall.
Stop right there. Your painting, your mural, your life will depend on it, trust me. Your walls are like canvas. They need to be primed, they need to be free of defects and holes to make sure that your brush strokes are nice and crisp and ready to receive paint. If you have walls that are not primed properly, full of holes, they will show up and they will be glaring on your mural.
You really do need to take the time to do this.
First part of prepping your walls is to clean your walls. If you just look at your walls, you're probably thinking like, oh, this is fine, I don't need to do this part. You'd be surprised at how much dirt and grime you will find on your walls, cobwebs and just different dirt and debris that settle into the uneven grooves of your paint surface. So using a slightly damp towel, very lightly go over your walls to collect all that dirt and debris. And for those high up corners, you can just go ahead and use a broom to knock down anything that you can't reach. And you're gonna wanna fill up any holes and dents that are in the wall using some spackle or joint compound with a putty knife. And once those patches dry, you can just slightly go over that with a sand block to smooth it out, and then very, very lightly with a damp cloth, go over that area to take away any remaining dust.
And very important, you're going to want to make sure to unscrew any of the electrical plates that you have on the walls that you plan on painting. Trust me, it takes 3 extra minutes to do, but it really will save you much more time when you're priming and you're painting.
And I made sure to tape the baseboards as well so that I don't have to be that super duper careful when I'm applying my paint colors. So once your walls have been prepped, it is now time to move on to step 4, priming your walls. Now what's really cool is that a lot of paint companies, especially Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams, and Behr, offer both a primer and paint option. So you can buy paint that has both a primer and the actual paint color mixed together. And that's what I did in this case. So instead of having to do 2 coats of primer and 2 coats of actual paint, I ended up only just doing 2 coats, which saves me so much more time and energy. So now that your walls have been primed, it's now time to add the background color that you desire. Like I said before, because I went with the paint and primer, I can just do the priming and background painting step all in one. And I always made sure to open windows, run the ceiling fan to get some air ventilation in the room so that I don't end up puffing a lot of paint fumes, and to also speed up the drying process. I probably left about 2 to 3 hours of time in between layers to make sure that the previous layer has dried properly. So now that you have your background color, it's now time to put in your design and really get your vision out onto the wall. Because I'm doing a more simplistic design, I decided to use a template. Each of these mountains are a triangle. I just had to repeat that same triangular shape shape over and over again, but just varying the heights. So I took a cardboard box, created a triangle shape, and cut it out. I went onto the wall and placed where my first peak would go, and then using a level just to make sure that my peaks were nice and level and straight, I traced out each mountain peak, varying the heights as I went along the entire width of the room. So this brings us to step 6, which is painting your wall. This is where it gets real fun, everybody. Because I am dealing with various types of paint colors, I decided to take plastic cups and take the white base color, pour it into every single cup, and then take my Arteza acrylic paints, squirt the appropriate color that I wanted into each cup. So each cup was a different color. Now this is the video footage that did kind of get lost in the shuffle, but you kind of get the picture of what's going on here. And I always made sure once I had the paint pre-mixed to put a layer of saran wrap on top of the paint cups themselves to make sure that the paint color does not dry over time. Once I had all my paint colors prepared, it was now time to put in the frog tape. I really wanted those crisp, clean lines for my mountain, so I opted for frog tape, and wherever I made the tracing marks for my mountains, I put the frog tape right along those lines, being very, very careful to follow that line. Now, this is kind of where it got interesting. When we were starting to put up the frog tape and differentiate each of the mountain peaks, we ran into a little bit of an issue, particularly with where we put the tape. If we had taped off every part of every mountain and we went to go and paint and take the tape off, we would have ended up having a border between each of the mountains instead of having the mountains overlap together. What I ended up doing was taping the mountain that appeared the closest to the viewer, the one that appeared to be right in front of all the other mountain ranges. And in addition to that, I also taped off a region for where we would put the snow caps. Playing with tape is just so incredibly cathartic. Once I put the tape in and I went over it with my hands to make sure that it was nice and sealed to the wall itself, I decided to pull out my paint and start painting the frontmost mountain peak. And then I used the base color for the snow tips. Once I was done with the first mountain, I took the tape out and then taped the mountain that was directly behind it and repeated the entire process. So I worked front to back, basically. It sounds like a lot more work than it really is. It just got really quick once you kind of got the hang of what was going on. And what I thought was a really cool tip while you're painting, choose one direction that you want to paint in. This applies to rollers and brushes, unless of course you're trying to make some texture. If you want to get a nice uniform block of color, use the same orientation of brush strokes. What I ended up doing was a slanted brush stroke that went up and down, right to left. That was just what worked for me, but you just need to choose something that's consistent for you. With the snow peaks, when I removed the tape from doing the rest of the body of the mountains, I had to go in freehand the edges. This is where having that Corona brush, it really does come in handy because I can do those edges very slowly, but very, very precisely. But of course, if you're not that confident with a brush of that size, just opt for a smaller brush, probably like a number 10 shader brush, something that's a little smaller to help you get at those edges a bit more precisely. And I also carry this through for various little touch-ups throughout the design. And then the best part of them all was just removing all of the tape and really seeing these mountain ranges come to life. Wow. Seeing how crisp those lines were, it just sent chills down my spine. Like, I made that. That looks so freaking cool. So at this point, I was pretty much done with my wall mural. It looks fantastic. The colors really pop against that more subtle, toned down gray-blue color, and it really works well together. I like the fact that Robin's room does have this more neutral tone to it, but because of all the colors of her toys and the colors of those mountains, they really bring it out in each other. The room really feels balanced in that way. Now, if you're wondering whether you should be sealing the wall mural itself for longevity, I would say yes, it is a good idea to go ahead and do that. You're going to want to consider varnishing it if you plan on keeping that mural there for a very, 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 very long time. So you really don't have to worry about dirt and grime buildup that will eat away at the actual design itself, and protect it against the fading of the sun sun as it hits the drywall over time. So you can always opt for some water-based polyurethane. Another great varnish option is the polyacrylic water-based protective finish. I would go with a clear matte or a satin. Do not go with a gloss because that thing will just shine right back in your face. Now, I didn't get a separate sealer for my mural because of several reasons. One, my latex paint has a eggshell finish, which has some sealing properties to it, but also my Arteza outdoor acrylic paint has a built-in sealant inside of it. So combining these two together, it kind of worked out in my favor. And because this is Robin's room, and as she gets older, she may decide she doesn't want a mural anymore. So I'm not really concerned about the longevity of this mural itself. But if you want to keep your mural for a very long time, seal it. Seal it with a varnish. And I'll include some varnishes as well as all the paint supplies we talked about in the description below. And there you have it. That's how I created a large mural painting. It was a really great creative process, and it showed me that I don't need to be afraid of painting on larger surfaces, especially walls in a home. It's just a lot more fun because you have much more room to play with. And who doesn't love more space to paint on?
Am I right?
So if you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. Hit that like button, you know what to do, so that you can see more videos like this from me to you in the future. So tell me, what do you think of this mural? Have you ever tried doing murals in your own home? Comment below, let me know. I always love to hear from you, my darling, gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful queen bees. And with all that being said, I think it's now time for me to sign off and maybe take an Advil. I love you all. Thank you so much for coming by and sharing some of your time with me. I'll see you all next time. Bye!
Say hello to the camera, Robin.